Good afternoon or good morning, Christine. How are you?
Good morning, Deborah. I'm doing great. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, thank you. I'm
Good.
Deborah Tomlinson, and I am the president of Inside the Vatican Pilgrimages and the executive director of Urbi et Orbi Communications, which is the publisher of Inside the Vatican magazine. And today on the live stream, we have Christine Mugridge, who was so wonderful on pilgrimage with us to Medjugorje and to the island of Bagia. And we thought we would just have a short conversation today talking about that pilgrimage and what's going on in Christine's life. And also let everybody know that on our next live stream, we are hoping to have Father Blount on.
That's right, Deb. I'm so happy to join you this morning. And I know that Father Blount is looking forward to being live stream with us as well this week, most likely.
Yes, he's been traveling, correct?
Father has been in Trinidad. He's on mission again, and his mission within SOLT, the Society of Our Lady of the Most Holy Trinity, is a preaching and healing ministry. So he frequently travels to different places all over the world, and he's recently been in Trinidad.
So you're also a lay member of SALT, correct?
Actually, yes, I am. The Society of Our Lady of the Most Holy Trinity has 3 branches. That is priest, religious sisters, and laity, and various forms of consecrated life that include consecrated widows and widowers, consecrated virgins, brothers, and married couples with children, and single people like myself.
Oh, so how did you meet Father Blount? What is your relationship with him now?
I met Father Blount 26 years ago, and I can't believe how quickly time flies. I met Father Blount through the introduction of our founder, Father James Flanagan, back in 1999, and I attended Father Blount's ordination mass, his first mass.
Oh, really?
Yes, it
Oh.
was a very profound experience, and all of us had an opportunity to receive his first blessing. And his cousin, Father Robert de Grandis, was there as well. And our founder had a team that he was putting together for healing, prayer, and evangelization. And I was introduced to Father Blount for that purpose of doing work in what we call an ecclesial team, or as our founder liked to refer to them, ecclesial family teams, which consist of priests, religious, and laity. And our founder had in his mind the idea of a healing prayer ecclesial family team.
Oh, how beautiful. So was your first introduction to Father at his first mass, or did you know him before?
I was at his ordination and at his first mass. Yes.
Wow. And that took place in Texas, was it?
Yes, it did. Near our generalate, which is
Mhm.
located in Corpus Christi, Texas.
Okay. And so now you've been working with Father for more than 20 years then.
Well, almost 25 complete, but in different capacities. But most generally, right now, it's been specific to an ecclesial team for healing prayer, pilgrimages, retreats, speaking, evangelization, catechesis,
Mm,
all of the above.
a lot going on. So Christine, I can imagine that you have seen some incredible healings in that time.
Well, Father Blount is one of the most unique priests that I have ever met in my life. Really at the level of our founder, Father
Mhm.
James Flanagan. In
Mhm.
fact, Father Flanagan himself was the official exorcist of the diocese where we were incarnated, and that was in Corpus Christi under Bishop Rene Gracida. And
Mm.
when Father Flanagan himself was a little bit older, he saw in Father Blount a certain charism and capacity for exorcism. And Father Flanagan trained Father Blount himself with permission of the Archbishop and allowed Father Flanagan, the Archbishop allowed Father Flanagan to train Father Blount, who then took some of Father's exorcism calls. And he's
Really?
extraordinary. The healings that I have seen are on all levels, Deborah, physical, spiritual, psychological, and many of them are immediate. It's quite extraordinary. I do have a degree in a higher degree in theology, and I have seen things that are inexplicable according to modern science, where there are no medical cures available, and I've seen them happen with him.
I remember when we were on our pilgrimage to Medjugorje and Bagia last September with Father Blount, and it was just that we were having mass. It was not the healing mass, and there was a gentleman who I asked if there was anybody who wanted to serve with Father, because we were in the small chapel, so there'd be one man serving. And this gentleman sheepishly put his hand up with his head down, and I said, "Okay." And he went, and I don't know if you remember this story. He was kneeling by the altar, and he told us afterwards that he was in excruciating pain. He had had a bad back for many years. And he said he didn't know if he could get through the mass. He was in so much pain.
Yes, that you're referring to a beautiful pilgrimage that we'll talk a little bit about, the mercy and the works of mercy side of it. But yes, I was there, and I do recall the gentleman. He was having trouble standing and was a lifelong sufferer of
That's what I recall, lifelong
very
sufferer.
excruciating pain.
And afterwards, he went into the sacristy with Father to disrobe, and Father spoke to him, and he thought he was going to pass out. The pain was so bad, and so Father talked to him and prayed over him, and he said immediately the pain went away.
The pain lifted instantaneously, and this happens during Mass with Father, and when Father is also intentionally stopping and focusing on the individuals. With Father Blount, every Mass is a healing Mass.
Yeah, that's
Every
what I
Mass
learned.
is a healing Mass
Yeah,
in any
yeah.
case, but with Father Blount, he is frequently known to have people that have had lifelong suffering that don't go up to him and ask him to pray over them. He's frequently known to have healings happen right during those Masses.
Yeah, it was remarkable. He went up to his room to compose himself because he said he had to take time, 20 minutes, just to realize what had happened to him because it was so instantaneous, as you said. And then he went to find his wife out on the dock by the water, and he was jumping around, and she didn't know what had happened to him because it wasn't the same person. But you're right. We are going to be doing a few more of these retreats this year. The dates are up on the banner from May 20th to the 31st, and from June 5th to the 16th. And both of these are going to encompass not only this special island of Bagia, but also we begin in a very important place.
We start the pilgrimage out going to Medjugorje, which has been approved by the Holy Father and his commission to study the messages and the apparitions. The first 7 apparitions of Medjugorje are formally approved. And then regarding pilgrimages to Medjugorje proper, the Vatican has given the highest level of approval possible, Deborah, the nihil obstat, which means there is nothing that is preventing anyone in an ordered manner to go, from the diocesan representatives all the way down to just the individual person. And Medjugorje is a place of great, deep peace, deep joy, and faith that grows in every way possible. And of course, Father will be with us, and there are healings that will happen. I will be joining him in healing prayer and in speaking on these trips as well. And I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, Christine, and I'm looking forward to these pilgrimage retreats in May and June, because you're going to be giving some talks, and what I saw and witnessed during September is that many people were coming up to you and asking for that feminine advice and guidance spiritually, and they seemed to really resonate with what you had to say. And in some ways, it was like a compliment to what Father had told them, but from the feminine aspect.
Yes, I think that it's a good team. I think that the idea of our founder is for that complementarity to exist. And Father and I, along with other priests in SALT and other laity in SALT, have had the experience of working as team in mission. And it's a great way to serve the Lord.
Beautiful family.
Yes, it is. It's a family dedicated to consecration of ourselves to the Blessed Mother and through her heart to each person of the Trinity. We like to imitate our Blessed Mother's relationship with the Father, the Son, and the Spirit in order to grow in the communion, to live the communion of the Most Holy Trinity to the fullest degree possible.
That's beautiful. And you're putting words to what I saw and what Robert and I both saw, and we talked about after that pilgrimage between you and Father Blount. And how beautiful. And Father had the robe of Padre Pio that was part of the healing mass as well. And you would take the robe and you would clothe the person with the robe of Padre Pio. And Father would then pray over. You and Father both would be praying over the person with the robe on.
I think that people who have the opportunity to experience that, especially with the incredible gift that Father brings, which is the first, one of the only robes that Padre Pio wore, which is the first of two that are worldwide traveling. Father is the custodian of the robe of Padre Pio. And for me to even touch it is a great privilege, but we envelop people in that robe and pray over them together. And there is a type of phenomenon when you have a religious order that allows for team prayer like this, because there is a complementarity in the gifts and a complementarity in the words of knowledge that are received. People will tell me when I pray that they had received the very same words, Deborah, from Father Blount a few years ago or a few months ago or a few days. And it's always just a good confirmation in the Lord. And I'm used to it at this point and very comfortable with it and thanking God for the opportunity. Of course, our teams are led by our priests. That is, they are the spiritual director of the team. And in a certain way, we are obedient in relationship to each other, but I look at it as strict obedience to the priestly leadership that Father provides. So whatever I am actually doing and working on, I'm working through his leadership and his obedience. So I'm joining you because of our previous work together, Father Blount and I, and because he's asked and approved of my joining you on this.
Well, I think it was the two of you who thought to reach out to Robert and myself when this work of mercy came to you. I'll let you explain that story.
Yes, Father and I had the opportunity to go on pilgrimage last year to Medjugorje. And while we were there, we heard about the island of Badia and Father Yozo, who was the first pastor of St. James Parish when the Blessed Mother appeared. I'm used to saying allegedly appeared. Don't have to say that anymore. Our Lady appeared when Father Yozo was the pastor, and his story is unbelievable.
And if I can interject, you don't have
Please.
to say allegedly anymore because of the Vatican's approval of the blessings that have come from Medjugorje, correct?
Absolutely. And in fact, those first days have the apparitions as approved. The first 7 apparitions, when Father Yozo was the pastor in charge of them, have been approved by the Vatican. And Fatima has the first 6 approved. And Medjugorje was referred to as the fulfillment of Fatima by Pope John Paul. But I digress slightly. We'll go back to the answer to your question. You know, Deborah, there's never a lack of topics for you and I to talk about, by the way. We can keep going forever here, but I'll get to the idea of how the pilgrimage itself was generated and how you and Dr. Robert Moynihan were brought in. Father and I wanted very much to see Father Yozo. Father Blount and I wanted to see Father Yozo. And so we heard that he was going to be available for a brief visit in June last year, 2024. And Father Blount and I went out to the island of Badia. Just happened to be a 5-day window when there were no pilgrims, and we were allowed a private pilgrimage experience, private visits with Father Yozo, and Jim Caviezel and his wife were there at the same time, which was really fantastic because we had hours and hours of conversations with Jim and his beautiful wife. And Father Yozo prayed over both Father Blount and myself for different days. Many long periods of contemplative prayer were had, quiet, the kind of rest and deep rest that you would need with a busy schedule like Father and now myself. This quiet time led us to think about how we could help Father Yozo. The island of Badia is private. When you come on retreat, you have access to your own private chapel, and there are no tourists on this island except for a limited amount of time during the day. Very few do come. They know it's an environment of contemplative prayer and quiet, no big restaurants. And then those pilgrims will leave, or those tourists, I should say, will leave. And then the pilgrims that come on your pilgrimage and our pilgrimage have the island privately to themselves. It's such an extraordinary experience. But we noticed that the 13th century chapel, which is more like a larger church basilica by American standards, this was completely destroyed by communists during 1991. And Father Blount had the idea of assisting not just with a pilgrimage where we could both pray with people and where people could have access in a more intimate setting to Father Blount and his healing prayer ministry, but we looked at this and said, let's try to have a work of mercy along with a pilgrimage, so that people who were coming on pilgrimage could actually be engaged in giving something from themselves. And so the idea of bringing in you and Bob was just a natural, as we would say, no-brainer, because we know that you and Bob, through Inside the Vatican, are engaged already in helping churches and communities around the world, especially those who have suffered at the hands of communists who were hell-bent on destroying anything to do with the Roman Catholic Church, especially, and Christianity in the larger sense.
Right.
So we wanted you exclusively to handle the work that we would be doing on these pilgrimages and others. And we couldn't be more thrilled when you and Bob met with us and engaged in the first pilgrims and helped us and have handled it so beautifully with such flexibility and grace. And we're so committed to this and thanking God for you.
Oh, well, thank you, Christine. It was actually an unexpected blessing that was dropped upon us. It was a lot of work. I do think that the people who came with us on the first pilgrimage is our gauge, right? And those souls, and we're hearing about things in their lives afterwards, and that's really what's important. I always talk about the unpacking when after you've been on pilgrimage, because there's a lot of joys and there's a lot of sorrow in life, and also on pilgrimage it can be the same. I always tell people I cannot eradicate all holy sandpaper. There's going to be some. It's just a matter of how coarse will it be, but we need that for that uncovering, that excavation, if you will. And so it takes a while for the unpacking. It takes sometimes. I had lunch with somebody a year after being on pilgrimage, and I was in her city and reached out to her, and she told me a day does not go by where she doesn't think about the pilgrimage house. She just still continues to think about what we talked about. A lot of what happens is around the table
Yes.
in the sharing, and people are out of their own routine of life. They step aside, and in these days, it's where you're on pilgrimage and you're with people who We all are at different points in our journey and our pilgrimage of our life, yet we're all going towards the same. And we all
Beautifully, beautifully put.
fall, and we all fall and we all get up. And I think sometimes in our own lives, we want to keep that white picket fence painted and, looking good. But when you're on pilgrimage, it takes energy to move and to travel and to be and to meet new people. So the guard comes down a bit. And that's when people start to open up. And I was really struck because the movement of that pilgrimage from Medjugorje to the island of Baja, just the movement alone, it just really, and then we travel, we go by boats, we go by 2 boats, right? And we land, we plop down on this island that we can explore, and we're the only ones on it. And after, you can unpack what you experienced in Medjugorje. And then here we are in retreat every morning with Father. And now in the coming ones, we're going to have that with you as well, and Father, both together. Bob and I plan to be there. But looking forward to these times together. But Christina, I meant to ask you, I don't think you're in Europe anymore. Where are you?
Well, I flew in last night from Medjugorje and Portugal. I'm spending more time, Deborah, in Europe, and I was in Medjugorje for almost 10 weeks. And then in Portugal, which I'm frequently in Portugal, doing ministry and visiting with very good friends. And I have now arrived in Florida, and I'm here for a fantastic event at Mar-a-Lago, the summer residence and what they say the winter residence of President Donald Trump, who was just here this past weekend. But it's an event destination as well for Catholics for Catholics. Oh, an organization headed up by a gentleman by the name of John Yep. And a good friend of mine will be here, Eduardo Verastegui, someone who I met, oh my goodness, probably about 18 years ago now.
Yeah.
And they'll other wonderful people that I admire so much. General Flynn will be a guest speaker. So I'm really looking forward to this event. I have wanted to attend it last year. My calendar didn't allow it. And so this year I'm finally coming for the first time for me, but I believe this is the second annual.
So you're going to be at Mar-a-Lago?
Yes, I'm going to be there on Wednesday and Thursday. There'll be a couple of other follow-up events, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Well, it should be wonderful. I'm looking forward to hearing all about it.
You'll be the first to hear.
So I should share with people before we go, we also have another opportunity to stay inside the Vatican during the Jubilee year. And we have some spots left. And I think that it would be, I think Katie was going to put those up for me. Yeah, there they are. And so we have one pilgrimage, Christine, where it's May 24th to the 3rd, and it goes all around Italy. We start off in Assisi, and then we go to Florence, and then we go to Norcia, where we meet those monks in Norcia, and the beautiful Sibillini Mountains of Umbria. And then from there, we head to the coast, and we go to Loreto, and then Lanciano and San Giovanni Rotondo, St. Michael's Cave, and then we stop at Manipello, the face of Christ. So it's called, the pilgrimage is Journey Towards the Face of Christ. And then after we are at that beautiful shrine with that beautiful cloth that's purported to be the burial cloth inside the shroud. We head to Rome, and in Rome we're going to stay inside the Vatican, and the pilgrims will have ready access to the Jubilee door. It's quite remarkable, and it's quite special. So we hope people come. And in September we will be inside the Vatican, and then from Rome we head to Assisi for the feast day of St. Francis, and of course in Assisi is also in May. We will visit the tomb of Carlo Acutis, who will be the newest saint in the church.
Well, Deborah, you mentioned these pilgrimages. I wanted to promote these pilgrimages with you because, as a theologian and a person who lived in Rome herself, these are hitting the most beautiful, deeply spiritual, very rich places to go. I was in Assisi just last spring and was able to go to the tomb of Carlo Acutis,
Mhm.
and I can only say that the religious experience I had there was unlike anything else I've ever had. I actually could feel an energy emanating from his incorrupt body. And they say that more people are visiting his tomb now than the tomb of St. Francis himself.
Yeah,
And
I could believe that
the
because
friars there say
we
this.
Robert and I've been there quite a bit lately for our work, not just with pilgrimaging, but to see our friend, the Bishop Domenico Sorrentino. And Carlo Acutis's body is the tomb is there at the bishop's house in the church there. And typically that piazza in front of that church and the bishop's house is filled with people. It's really quite remarkable. It's we both said to ourselves, more people seem to be here than at the tomb of St. Francis. So as the bishop has told us, Bishop Sorrentino, he is the modern day St. Francis,
He
and he
is.
was reaching out to the young. And so it should be a wonderful time. I was in Assisi probably 17 years ago for the feast day of St. Francis, and it was just extraordinary. And so it should be really lovely in October. Of course, the weather in Italy is fabulous in October. So
Perfect.
hopefully, if you're over in Europe at that time, you can hop over to Italy and join us on that one. I know
Oh
you're
my
going
gosh. I wasn't thinking of it, but I would be delighted to try to do that.
and
Um,
that would be great. And you will be joining me for a special pilgrimage that we again will be staying inside the Vatican in November, and it's for the women saints, and it's a different type of pilgrimage. I shouldn't say different type. It is particularly focused on prayer and understanding the call of women in the church today in such a time as this. What should we as women, how should we be looking at the church today and our call today and how to answer that?
Well, I'm intrigued by that, and you've invited me to be on that. I think the dates of that are going to be put up, but I'm very, very happy to be a participant in that pilgrimage. Almost 20 years ago, or maybe a little, maybe a little over 20 years ago now, I was able to put together a book for women called
Hmm.
called The Gift of Femininity. I published it through my own nonprofit publishing company called Hermitage Press. And then it was picked up by St. Anthony Messenger Press and
Hmm.
put into a different title called God's Call to Women. And it had people such as Kimberly Hahn and others, women who were founders of religious orders and communities. Chiara Lubitsch, Josette Croissant, who
Yeah.
founded the Beatitude community with her husband. We had a desire to put together women's testimonies in the Catholic faith, primarily to hold the banner high of what is beautiful in the teachings of the church, what gives women an energy and a focus, really, to live their best life. And the call to women in this era is championed by the writings of our Holy Fathers, which maybe feminists don't necessarily know. And every time we talk about this
Yeah.
topic, women are delighted to find the truth underneath some of the negative misconceptions. So it's a friendly dialogue that we engage in. And with my history of putting a book together, we met with Pope John Paul. We had an audience, a private audience with him. And at that time, we had opportunities to go on Vatican Radio and Vatican TV. So now, 20 years later,
Yeah.
I'm revisiting the idea of women in the church and what we have to say, and you have kindly included me on this pilgrimage, which I'm so thrilled about, because we will be staying inside the Vatican walls at the
Mhm.
very same place where our Holy Father, Pope Francis, stays, Casa Santa Marta. I've been in the building. I've been inside those walls. I've sung in the Vatican choir for over 10 years and had opportunities to go in and out quite frequently. But for the purpose of prayer and dialogue on what is the role of women in the church today, I'm thrilled to join you, Deb. Thank you for including me. And I want to encourage as many women as possible to take that time that they need,
Yeah.
set it aside, and come with us
Come with
inside the Vatican.
Yeah, exactly. Come with us on pilgrimage. And hopefully, Christine, one of the things that came out of COVID for us is I cultivated, I would say, some pilgrimages in the United States. And what I'd like to do is see how we can have some of these in the United States so people who can't get enough the time that's needed to travel across the pond, as we say, um, or the means, because it is costly. What can we bring to some of the women here in the United States? Our Protestant sisters do it very well, so we need to look and see what we can do. Um,
Absolutely. I know that busy moms, busy wives,
mm,
college students, they don't necessarily have the time and the finances to take the longer pilgrimages. So, probably about 15 years ago, I was praying about doing something like that as well. So, the opportunity is certainly there, and people should contact you directly and let you know what locations they would be interested in going to. What I've discovered is that, as you've said, regardless of where the setting is, it's the getting away for a few moments that helps. And it's the conversations that you have around the dinner table with a new friend that you've just met that can actually have a transformative impact on our lives. I know that I look forward to a few days away, and the people that I've met on pilgrimage, especially inside the Vatican pilgrimages, have become really my good friends. So I would encourage them as well, people listening, to think about joining Inside the Vatican. I've been invited to consider being a host and a leader on spiritual director on multiple pilgrimages, and I'm happy to do that, especially in the local as well, the national pilgrimage venue.
that sounds great. Well, we'll continue the conversation. We'll keep the dialogue going, and hopefully the gentlemen can join us later this week, Robert and Father Blount, and we'll have a conversation with them about what's to come and how Father Blount is doing and what he's been up to. And then,
His ministry is more active. He had the opportunity to take some time for much needed rest. And he's a little bit like a tornado, he's
I know.
a spiritual good in the best sense. He's always giving of himself at a very uh, natural and very deep level. And when we have the opportunity to speak with him, we'll hear more about his insights into the value of pilgrimage and why he finds it a very good venue for serving in his ministry of healing and preaching.
Yeah, I look forward to that. Well, Christine, I hope you have a wonderful time at Mar-a-Lago. Looking
Thank
forward
you.
to hearing all about it. And we'll talk again next week on this channel. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And be sure to like and subscribe to Urbi et Orbi Communications, as well as Inside the Vatican Pilgrimages YouTube channel. And click the bell so you'll be notified when we go live. And Christine, I think that you're going to try to get a YouTube channel going for Father Blount and you, so that these could be broadcast on his official channel, because there's an awful lot on Father Blount on YouTube, isn't there?
Well, there's an awful lot on YouTube. I think there are about 120 unofficial channels.
Mm,
What I want to open up is a SOLT lay channel that will feature priests and religious and laity. And certainly, Father has been given permission to promote the works of mercy that he's engaged in. So I'm sure that we'll be able to feature him, and it will connect directly up to the SALT webpage and the SALT superiors.
Oh, that would be great. Well, hopefully we'll see that next time we're together on the live stream. Have a
That's,
wonderful week and looking forward to our next time together. Thank you, Christine.
thank you, Deb. God bless. Bye,
God bless you.
everyone.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Have you ever longed for a pilgrimage that deepens your faith and transforms your heart while staying on a secluded island in a Franciscan monastery? Join us on a mercy pilgrimage to Croatia and Medjugorje, an extraordinary experience led by Father James Blount and hosted by Inside the Vatican Pilgrimages. Spend 4 unforgettable nights in Medjugorje, immersing yourself in the sacred beauty of Our Lady's message. Explore the cities of Dubrovnik and Split with expert Catholic guides, uncovering the rich history and the deep spiritual roots of these remarkable cities. Then embark on a 5-day spiritual retreat on the private island of Bagia, Croatia. Surrounded by the serene waters of the Adriatic Sea and the breathtaking landscapes, you'll have the rare opportunity to grow deeper in faith, guided by Father James Blount in prayer, reflection, daily Mass, culminating with a healing Mass. Along the way, expect grace-filled encounters, unique cultural experiences, and moments of unexpected joy. Due to the high demand, multiple pilgrimage dates are available, with additional options for 2025. Reserve your place today and step into the sacred path of mercy and renewal during the Jubilee of Hope. Visit Inside the Vatican Pilgrimages to learn more and to register now. Hope to see you on pilgrimage.